This is a brand new and very sexy, I think it has to be said, Yeti SB115, a bike I've been really excited to ride since it launched earlier this year. So in this video, I'm going to review it, talk about climbing and descending performance, go through some of the tech features on this bike with its very unique suspension design, talk about value for money, how it compares to key rivals, and give my verdict at the end of the video. So lots to get into, but before we do, a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Shell, a maker of a wide range of waterproof gloves, socks, hats, and more accessories to keep you warm and dry when you're riding this winter. Check out their full range at their website, link down below. And with that out of the way, let's dive into the review. Let's start this review with how it rides, because that's what really matters and that's why you're watching this video. And simply put, this is a bike that is fast everywhere. It's a short travel, big wheeler bike that puts an emphasis on being an efficient climber with really good suspension performance, but with beefier tyres, a bigger fork and a bit more travel, so it's just as capable on a descent as you want a bike to be. So pure cross-country short travel bikes can be fantastic climbing or traversing terrain, but a bit skittish, a little bit nervous when you're descending. Steep geometry, spindly fork and other features holding them back from really letting you have a lot of fun on a descent. But this bike is fun everywhere, fast going up and fast going down. So it's this bike that really does everything really well. Got the big wheels for rolling speed, got the low weight, the stiff carbon frame, but most of all, that rear suspension performance is incredible. For me, it really is a perfect suspension setup. It's super stable when you're climbing, so it feels really efficient, especially on longer climbs. There's loads of traction on rooty, techy climbs, and the rear suspension comes alive on bigger impacts and descents and lets you carry speed through all sorts of terrain and high-speed corners without having to touch the lockout lever. It's a bike you can definitely use for cross-country short track racing, although it might be a bit overkill compared to some pure cross-country race bikes. But for longer distance, marathons, multi-day epics like the Trans Rocky and the Cape Epic and other events like that, where you need a lightweight, fast rolling bike, but with a bit of extra capability for unknown terrain you might encounter, this bike definitely ticks that box really well. With 115mm of rear suspension, you can't steamroller through rough sections like you can on a bigger bike. And the rear suspension is quite linear, so bigger or harder hitting riders might have to fit a volume token in their rear shock to get a bit more progression. But for me, as a light rider, I found the setup just right. When you've earned your gravity tokens on a climb, this bike really lets you cash them in and have a lot of fun on descent. Everything from slippy, muddy, rooty, twisty, slow speed stuff to high speed, burb infested tracks, this bike is just really fast. So I've been using it for everything from short lunchtime blasts, where it's a lot of fun, and doing longer all-day rides, which aren't very long at the moment because we don't have much daylight in December, but riding from sunrise to sunset is definitely something you can do on this bike, and there's nowhere it will really hold you back. You are getting a really good looking full carbon fibre frame and swing arm on this Yeti SB115. And in the last few years, the company has revamped their entire lineup, giving them all a cohesive look. So they all share a similar identity, and they all share the same and very unique Switch Infinity suspension design. Let's dive into that in a bit more detail. The Switch Infinity is a very unique suspension design that you won't see on other bikes. It was developed a few years ago with Fox Racing and uses two short Kashima coated rails in place of a normal main pivot that alters the suspension as the bike moves through a travel. The rails alter the wheel path and anti-squat. The early stage of the suspension travel features a rearward axle path for better pedalling performance, with the carrier moving upwards on the rails. Further into the travel, the carrier switches to moving down the rails. This reduces the chain tension for better big impact performance. But don't worry, it's well protected from the mud via the flap that you can see and has proven to be durable since it launched a few years ago. Now you might know that Yeti 2 years ago launched the SB100, its short travel 100mm big wheeler. And this bike is basically that bike, the same frame and swing arm, but with a new rocker linkage and a longer stroke shock to give it a bit more travel, up from 100 to 115. And that has been coupled with bigger tyres, wider rims, bigger brakes, and a bigger fork on the front and a short stem and wide handlebar. With all those changes then, this new bike moves into a category with some really exciting options. like the brand new Transition Spur, the latest Specialized Epic Evo, even at a pinch the Yeti Izzo I reviewed a little while ago, and then the Norco Optic. So all bikes that are big wheels, 29-inch wheels, with short travel, 115 up to 130. So retain that sort of essence, that speed of a cross-country race bike, but borrow a lot more from trail and enduro bikes in terms of geometry and component specs to give you that extra capability you want on a descent. Geometry, as many of you will know, has changed a huge amount in the last few years, and probably the most exciting development in the evolution of the mountain bike since they came around in the late 80s, early 90s. The geometry is the last kind of component in unlocking the performance of a mountain bike on challenging terrain. Sadly, the new SB115 doesn't have up-to-date, most progressive geometry compared to those rivals I mentioned earlier. But all that said, I know not everybody is on board with the longer, lower, slacker geometry trend at the moment, and the one upside to a shorter reach on this bike, coupled with the head angle, is that it's very nimble and very agile. So at lower speeds it feels quite lively, and in twisting terrain through the trees it definitely is easy to move around, more so than a longer reach bike, where you need to be on steeper terrain to really unlock the potential that longer reach and slacker head angle gives you. So it's not all bad, it's just worth pointing out, and it's definitely down to personal preference based on the bikes you're riding at the moment. Now, here are 5 things I love about the Yeti SB115. I love how the bike looks. A really shapely, swoopy carbon frame, one-piece swing arm, low slung top tube, just a really good looking frame. Not the best colour in my opinion, but other colours are available in this model. I love the head badge, a proper metal head badge, got real history and heritage in this head badge as well, bolted onto the frame, so much nicer than the stickers you normally get on head tubes. No need to carry a heavy hydration pack with this bike because there is space for a bottle cage. So you put stuff in your pockets, water bottle in there, and off you go. I've been really impressed with the tyre clearance on this bike because it's winter here at the moment, so really muddy and lots of leaves as you can see. But clearance around the rear stays and a big tyre, no problem at all. And we have a nice mudguard flap on the Switch Infinity suspension, so it's all nice and protected from the elements, so that's nice to see. You also get a lifetime warranty on the frame, which is reassuring on your expensive high-end carbon fibre bike. It's not all rosy. There are a few things I don't like about this new Yeti SB115. Starting with the press fit bottom bracket. Boo. One of the really annoying things about the Yeti SB115 is that one of the cables or hoses rattles inside a frame, which is really annoying when you're riding and ruins the otherwise quiet ride experience. So as you can see, all the cables and hoses go inside the head tube, and one of them, I'm not sure which, rattles inside the frame. I'm sure it's an easy fix, but you shouldn't have that on a high-end, expensive carbon fibre bike like this. I'm not loving the rear tyre on this bike at all. Filming here in December and it's really muddy. This Maxxis Aggressor tyre is not the best choice for mud riding. Not really the fault of Yeti for speccing this bike. I'm sure in the summer on dusty trails this tyre is just fine, nice and fast rolling. But for winter, I would definitely consider fitting a better tyre to suit your conditions. But probably the biggest gripe on a Yeti SB115 is the geometry. And simply put, it's too short. This is a size large and the reach measures 450 millimeters. And for me, that's too short. For comparison, other bikes in this category are usually between 470 up to 480, even 490 in some cases. For me, at 5'11", I've ridden quite a few bikes, and for me the sweet spot is 475, 480 or thereabouts, and it gives me on the trail a better fit and more capability on technical trails, because the front wheel is further out in front of you, got more room to move on the bike, and I just feel better able to carry speed over rough obstacles. Buying a Yeti isn't an economical choice. They are a premium bike brand and the prices reflect that. You get good kit on a bike for the most part, but there are bike brands that offer this sort of level of equipment for much less money. So value for money is a tricky one to judge this bike on, because older viewers watching this, about the same age as me or older, who grew up mountain biking in the 80s and 90s, will remember Yeti as being one of the pioneering bike brands that produced some iconic bikes with some amazing paint jobs. And that has ensured the bike brand, with the continuing investment and design on their bikes, have retained the position as one of the few premium, kind of long-running bike brands, long established, with a strong identity, which is never lost. Even older Yetis go for a tidy sum. It's quite incredible actually to see how much an old Yeti will go for on eBay or Facebook. So I think the price does reflect their history and their heritage, but I know some people will be looking at the price thinking that's just too rich for what you get. But it's not a bike to judge based on the components on the bike, because we do have a very unique frame with their own suspension design, which you won't see on any other bike. So that is clearly a big investment for what is really quite a small company. So fair play to them for putting a lot of effort into what must have been quite an expensive design to develop and then to roll out across a wide range of bikes. So yes, they are expensive. You can't say they're the best value for money, but there are other factors like the prestige the bike offers you. And for many people, that's clearly enough reason to buy a Yeti over a cheaper option, given how popular they are. So I'll leave it for you to decide whether this bike is worth the money or not down in the comment section below. So that has been my review of the Yeti SB115. And it's fair to say it's a fantastic bike that does impress in many ways, but with a few flaws that just holds it back from being perfect, which is a real shame. But hopefully we might see an update in the future. For now, I'm eyeing up the SB130. Hopefully I can get a review on that bike to follow on from this bike, so watch this space for that. Some really exciting contenders in this category, and I think this category of bike, whatever you want to call it, down country if you like, is really exciting. A bike that's fast everywhere with a lot more capability than a pure cross-country race bike. So bikes that really work for me, and I'm sure they work for lots of you as well. But that's all for now. Let me know what you think of this bike down below. If you enjoyed this review, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I will see you all again next time. Thank you so much for watching.